Caitlin here from Launch the Damn Thing. I actually just wanted to show you the easiest way to automatically generate good color themes from your color palette without having to individually go in and edit every single item in all 10 color themes. I know I have done this before I finally figured out what the hell is going on back there, so I figured it's high time to share that secret with you, although it's not really a secret, it's just a little known method. So I'm in my template style guide on this template site. I have this one section in here with popular elements that are often used, very basically plugged in here, and then duplicated that over and over again so that I could set the color theme for each section on this page to match up with the different color themes. So this top one is lightest one, this one is lightest two, and so on all the way down. While this is open, if we go into our site styles and then we go to our colors, we can set the color palette in here, and you probably already know that, but if you click on the edit palette, you can select new colors. But here's the thing. This is really supposed to be added in a specific order. So if we chose, for example, a dark brown here and a lighter blue here, and I don't know, rose blush color here, and maybe a really light gray here, and kind of arbitrarily chose these, you get kind of fucked up color themes. So there is a rhyme or reason to the way that we choose these 5 colors, and I'm going to set this back to default here so we can see what happens. So we have lightest, does not have to be white, but it's your lightest color in the palette. Your darkest does not have to be black. In fact, I think this one is a dark blue. So it just has to be the darkest in your color palette. And then the 2 on the inside, immediately on the inside, this is your second darkest color and your second lightest color. And then your bright color is your accent color. And most often it's used for buttons and that kind of thing. And so you want to think about strategically making sure that that color is the bright, attention-grabbing color from whatever color palette you're using. That said, once you have those set, you can see how it fills out your color themes automatically based on that selection. In this particular case, it is setting the lightest color as the background for lightest 1 and 2, and your darkest color for the text in the same 2 color themes. So we have the darkest color for our text, for our buttons, and if we scroll down to lightest 2, you can see it's highlighting that over here. Because I've set this section to display as lightest 2, it looks practically the same, and that's just the way this color palette is working. If we scroll down to light 1, we see that the second lightest color is now the background, but the text, the accent color, the buttons and everything, that's still our darkest color. If we keep scrolling down, we go into bright 1. Now we have the darkest color as the background and the bright color as the text, the link color, the button color, basically everything else. So this is typical for bright 1 and 2. It tends to use the combination of your bright accent and your darkest, or depending on contrast, because it selects that itself, your bright color, your accent color, and your lightest. For this particular color palette, it decided that the contrast between these 2 colors was greater than the contrast between these 2 colors, which I actually agree with. If we had the bright orange on top of the white, it would be harder to read. If we keep scrolling down, we notice that the reverse is true for bright 2. If we keep scrolling down, we have the second darkest color for the background and the lightest color as the foreground color or the text color. And on dark 2, it's using the accent color and it's using the second darkest color as the background. For the last 2, it's going to be a combination, kind of the reverse of lightest 1 and lightest 2. But that said, let's take a look at a different color palette and see how it reacts when we change it. Let's select something more monotone. Now you can see it's picked a slightly different combination of these things, right? So you can tell more of a difference between lightest one and lightest two, light one and light two, bright one and bright two, and, all the way down. In the second lightest, you can see it's using our gray, which is this color right here, your accent color, and it's using our darkest color for the text, and I guess our light color as the background for our cards and stuff like that. If we scroll down a little further, looks like it's using our accent color for the text, for the buttons. So you can see it does kind of play with contrast as best it can. It's computer generated, so it's obviously not very good. I would never have this low contrast on each other, but that's just me. Let's pick a different one so we can see again how it reacts. This is a popular color theme, I think, in one of the templates. So let's take a peek at that one. Yeah, this is a little easier to tell. It is following the same logic as the one we just saw with the monochromatic gray color palette, but here it's a little bit easier to recognize what it's doing. So again, we have the lightest color background for lightest one and lightest two, and also for bright one. Then we have the second lightest color for light one and light two. We have the accent color, the middle color here for the background of bright 2, the second darkest color for dark 1 and dark 2, and the darkest color as the background for darkest 1 and darkest 2. And you'll notice it tends to want to use either the bright color, the accent color, or the lightest color for the text. And the opposite is true for the top half. It's using the darkest color or the bright color, the accent color for the text and the accents for the buttons and such. So if you choose your color palette strategically in this way, it should more or less automatically fill out everything in these color themes for you, and you'll have very minimal adjustments to make. One thing that I will note though is that these images will always have an overlay in here. So if you go into Site Styles, while you have these open in your template style guide, if you're doing this with me, and I do have a blog post on this, so I won't cover how to set up your style guide here, but if you search my blog, you'll be able to find that post also. If you select your image, it'll filter down the list of color adjustments you can make to that particular type of element. And if you look at your color image overlay, you can actually drag that down to 0 if you do not want it to have one. For a poster, I usually tend to leave it, but for the rest of them, it doesn't really make sense to have it because nothing is overlapping the image. And usually I have edited the image the way that I want it to display, and I do not want the color overlay. So what I've done in this template site is to go through and actually move this transparency of the overlay color all the way down to 0 for all overlay colors on all 4 of these remaining image styles, so that I do not have to do this every single time I do a new site for a client. Because that is time consuming, right? That's one overlay fix for all 10 of these things times 4 or 5 of these image layouts, depending on whether you want to change the poster block or not. So that's one thing that you want to keep in mind. It doesn't really matter for images like this, but if you're ever using a PNG here with a transparent background, you will see the overlay color. So if I scroll down here, you can see the poster block has the overlay color because there's no image back there. You can just see the overlay. These have a transparent overlay, so you can't see the image because there is no image in those blocks right now. So this is kind of the problem that you see, right? If you put a PNG in here and you have like a colored text block over it, that's what's happening. You just have to come in here and adjust the overlay color down to 0 transparency. So those are the most common issues that are related to color. And of course, you can go in and change and update all of the color adjustments per theme if you want to. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It just is extremely time consuming. So I always try to adjust the color palette based on how I want it to populate these themes. Now that you understand that, hopefully that helps narrow down the time spent on working in this particular area of site styles If it helped you, let me know, leave me a comment, and I'll see you next time.